What is going on, everybody? Good late morning. The Combine is underway, by the way, day 3 of the on-field workouts at the Combine. I'm not live streaming today, but I will be live streaming the Combine tomorrow for the offensive linemen. So rest assured, I am following along with the Combine from home, just on my own, and I will be making videos about it later, depending on what I see. And you guys should be following along as well, because it is fun. The running backs, wide receivers, quarterbacks, it's fun. It's just not super relevant to the Seahawks right now. So, yeah, that's going on. Streaming with the Hawks Nest tonight at 6, by the way. I know that's a different time than we usually do, but we had to move things around a little bit. We're going to be streaming more about free agency, and we're probably going to talk a little bit about some of the guys that I talk about in this video. We're doing more free safeties, or you could just call them safeties, because in this defense, safety is safety is safety. And now we're going to move down a level to like the starters. These are guys who you would get and they would start. And they would probably be pretty decent. They would be all right. Or you hope they're all right. You hope they have one more year in them. You hope that last year wasn't a fluke, whatever. But you're also aware of the fact that this is a likely temporary solution, or it's a little bit of a flyer. So you can do this, but you have to be aware of the fact that it's unlikely that your problems have all just been solved by you doing this. So, here are some guys who I think you could pull in to play, and it would be okay. Like, if you decide to go this route, you'd have to be saving money, right? If you cut Quandre Diggs to save $11 million, and then you spend most of that $11 million on another safety, then there was really no point. So, you'd have to find one of these guys willing to play for a relatively low amount of money to where it's worth it for you to cut Quandre Diggs. Otherwise, go get one of the big guns or just go cheap at the position. But here are the options. First guy, longtime Chicago Bear, been a very good player in his career, but he has just entered the wrong side of 30. Eddie Jackson. No longer a Chicago Bear. No longer the Pro Bowl or All-Pro level player he was back when the Bears defense was really good for a little bit there. He's been on a slow decline for a few years now. He's missed a decent amount of games over the last 3 years as well, by the way. Excuse me. 13 combined missed games over the last 3 years. But still not a bad player, and still a player with something to offer. So if you could go get Eddie Jackson, he was making a lot of money on his previous contract. If you could go get him for even like 1 year, $5 million, and then you're saving $6 million over having Quandre Diggs, that's understandable. I don't know if it's good or not exactly. I don't know if that's something you should actually like be excited about. But if that's a realistic possibility, you might be able to say, I can use that $6 million for most of my rookie class. I can use that $6 million to bring in a quality veteran tight end. And when you look at it like that, it's like, okay, if there's not a huge downgrade from Eddie Jackson to Quandre Diggs, and there might not be, that's a pretty good bargain. Now, like I said, Eddie Jackson is not an all-pro anymore. He's not even a really good player. I mean, there is a reason why the Bears moved off of him after last season. He has had good seasons recently, like 2022. He had 4 interceptions, had good PFF coverage numbers, but for the most part, ever since his monster years of making All-Pro and Pro Bowl, like 2018 was the year that the Bears defense was #1 in the league, it's been a slow drop-off to where he's just kind of a decent player. But is that really worse than Quandre Diggs? Could Eddie Jackson do what Quandre Diggs does? Could he provide as much value as Quandre Diggs in a potentially slightly different way? Maybe. And if you could get him for cheaper. Again, he was making a ton of money on his previous deal. Could you get him for like 1 year, $5 million? Maybe so. It's hard to calculate this stuff exactly. But if this guy is just content to stay in the league and collect a moderately sized paycheck, I think it's on the table. Next guy that I think you could pull in at this position to be just like a competent starter short term would be Tracy Walker, formerly of the Lions, just turned 29. So age isn't quite the looming problem that it was for Eddie Jackson, but it's not that far away either. Like, we're splitting hairs here a little bit. And This guy has missed quite a bit of time recently. In 2022, he missed all but 3 games. Last year, he played every game, but he only started in 6 of them. He wasn't like a big time safety anymore with the tackle count. The Lions secondary obviously had problems, and he's part of that. I don't think he's the main instigator of that. I think they have an issue at corner outside of Sutton. But Tracy Walker seems like he's kind of fallen off ever since he missed all that time in 2022 with the injury that he had. So you are probably just getting a decent player at this point with Tracy Walker. And I don't think he's going to command a lot of money. It might be similar to Eddie Jackson. You maybe could get him for 1 year, $5 million. Because he is a year younger, maybe you'd have to pony up a little bit more. Maybe it'd be like 2 years, $10 million, 2 years, $11 million. But basically, it's the same idea. You get him as a veteran stopgap for the safety position, and you just hope he can hold up decently while you figure out the long term. Not a bad idea. Again, it's going to depend on the money. It's really hard to know with these guys sometimes. Like, he's only 29. He might be thinking, no, I'm holding out for that 3-year, 4-year deal. I'm expecting to get like 8 mil, 9 mil a year. I don't think that's the case, but it's not outside the realm of possibility that he's thinking that way, at least. I don't think he'll get there. I mean, he only played half the season last year, basically, in terms of snaps, so I don't know what he would be banking on there. I don't know what he'd be bringing to the table in terms of like, hey, I deserve to get paid like one of the best safeties. I don't see that. So, decent stopgap option. This next guy might be pushing it a little too much, but he's coming off a pretty good season. It's Tandon Gibson. Tandon Gibson played with the 49ers last year. Played well. Part of a good defense. Going to turn 34 in August. So we got a little bit of a problem here, guys. So Tandon Gibson, age is going to really start becoming a problem soon. Wasn't a big problem for him in 2023, though. Last 2 seasons, he's missed all of 1 game. He's had 6 interceptions for the Niners over the last 2 years. He's been a solid, effective starter at safety. You can go back to a couple years he spent with the Bears. He was good there too, reliable. I mean, this guy's been a lot of different places. This guy's been on a lot of different teams. But seems like a guy who pretty much always just shows up and does his thing. Hasn't missed a lot of time from injury, especially given the nature of the safety position. I think that's pretty impressive. Excuse me. And I think the versatility is there because this guy was playing with the Bears when they were running the Fangio scheme. So he should be able to do the things that we want him to do in this defense. Always been a big ball hawk. Always been somebody who takes the dang ball away. Always been somebody who you can count on to make big plays. So PFF, I mean, they're very complimentary of him. Even last year when he was 33, you can go back to previous years. It's mostly good. It's not all great, but mostly it is pretty good. So you're definitely taking a risk here because he's going to be 34. But you could bring him in, 1-year deal. I don't think he would cost a lot of money. I mean, last year it was $2.9 million on his last contract, AAV. So there's obviously some acknowledgement on his part that, hey, I'm old now. I'm old, and I can't expect to command big bucks because I could go at any time. So could you get him for like 1 year, $3 million, 1 year, $4 million? I don't think it would be more than 1 year, $5 million. I know that. And I think it'd probably be like 1 year, $4 million. When these players get old, they just kind of, I mean, unless you're like a quarterback, unless you're a really, really good quarterback, you're just not going to get that money. So Tandon Gibson, you get him for really cheap. You probably got a workable option for 1 year while you, again, this is the key phrase here, figure out the long term, mostly via the draft. Final guy, little bit of a sleeper here, not somebody that a lot of people are talking about, not something a lot of people are thinking about, but he was an effective starter, and by effective, I actually mean quite good for the Chargers last year, Alohi Gilman. So, Alohi Gilman of the Chargers, 6th round pick several years ago, low-profile player, but then he became basically the full-time starter in 2023, and he actually played really well. Made a lot of plays in coverage. Had a couple interceptions. Forced some fumbles. Dude had a good season. PFF was very complimentary of what he did in 2023. They thought he played really well. He's going to turn 27 right when the season starts. So he should be coming into his physical prime. this would be an intriguing option if you're okay with the fact that it's basically a one-year wonder right now. Like, the year before that, he didn't do that much. Year before that, he did even less. The year before that, he did nothing. This is a guy who really kind of came out of nowhere to play really effective football for the Chargers last year. So I don't think he'd be super expensive because he's got to prove it, but it's possible, right? The reason why I don't think he's going to be super expensive is because I think this free agency class of safety is fairly strong. So I don't think a guy like him who's a one-year wonder, who doesn't have any name recognition, is going to command a big salary. That's just my gut feeling, though. I think that he might take a one-year prove-it deal, because if he has 2 good years in a row, then he will get the money next year. I think that he might take like a more multi-year but reasonable deal, like maybe 3-year, $21 million or something like that. Either way, I think that's a reasonable approach. If you like him, if you're impressed with what he did last year, it's not like he's surrounded by a bunch of all-pros on the Chargers that carry him or anything like that. So if you want to go this route and say, okay, we think we have a long-term solution here, but we're not going to marry ourselves to it, and we're also going to understand that it could be a one-year hit, a one-year fluke. Could be. So Alohi Gilman, that would be something you could do in this area that isn't just a one-year stopgap solution. But at the same time, I don't think you can lean on him the same way you lean on a guy like Antoine Winfield Jr. He's just not as good. Even a C.J. Gardner-Johnson. All right, so those are my starters. Got a few more coming in a later video. Keep an eye out. Continue to follow the Combine. You know I am as well. More videos coming later on this position. Let me know what you think about these guys. Go Hawks. And, yep, more stuff coming soon.